Welcome back to the Book Digest. In today's episode, we're diving into a really powerful summary of the creative act, A Way of Being by the legendary record producer Rick Rubin. Now, if you don't know the name, you absolutely know the sound. This is the creative genius behind icons like Johnny Cash, Jay-Z, Adele, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But this book, it's not a collection of studio stories. It's a deep, profound guide to the very nature of creativity itself. Let's get into it.
So Rubin kicks things off with a pretty radical idea, one that challenges the very foundation of how we think about creativity. He says, very simply, that the artist is not the source of their ideas. And right away, that simple shift in perspective, it just removes this crushing pressure to invent something brilliant out of thin air.
Okay, so if the artist isn't the source, then what are they? Well, they're the channel, a conduit. The work flows through them. This right here is the core concept we're going to be exploring, and believe me, it completely changes the game from one of production to one of reception.
So if the artist is just a channel, you might be asking, well, who gets to be one? This is Rubin's first big invitation to all of us. He just completely dismantles the myth that creativity is some rare gift reserved for a select few. Instead, he argues it's a fundamental part of being human.
This really lays out that core shift in thinking. You know what, the common myth is that creativity is some special talent for a gifted few. But Rubin's truth is that it's a fundamental way of being, a way of engaging with the world that's available to every single one of us.
I mean, this quote just nails it. The question isn't if you're creative. You already are. The real work is learning how to tune in, how to access and express the creativity that's always flowing, both within you and all around you.
Okay, so if creativity flows through us, where does it actually come from? This leads us to Rubin's most philosophical and maybe most ambitious concept, the idea of tuning in to what he calls the source.
So what exactly is this source? Rubin defines it as this universal, constant wellspring of creative energy and ideas. It's not something you have to invent. It's something you just tap into. And the key word here is receptivity. Your job isn't to create the energy, but to become a better receiver for it. And this is so crucial. Your greatest work won't come from you, but through you. You know, this mindset is just incredibly liberating. It frees you from that heavy burden of being a genius, and instead just asks you to be open, to listen, and to pay attention.
Now, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? How do you put it into practice? Well, Rubin breaks it down into two fundamental practices, two creative muscles that you can actually strengthen: attention and taste.
To become a better channel, you first have to quiet all the noise. Rubin suggests these 4 practices to really cultivate that deep, unfiltered attention you need. Whether it's finding solitude, spending time in nature, meditating, or just engaging with art that's outside your comfort zone, the goal is always the same: to sharpen your ability to truly see and hear the world.
And then there's taste. For Rubin, this is maybe even more important than technical skill. Why? Because skill without taste just produces empty work. Taste is your internal compass. It's what tells you what feels alive and true. And you develop it by consuming widely: books, music, film, art, to build this rich internal library of what excellence really feels like.
Of course, let's be real. The path is never a straight line. Every creative person faces obstacles. But Rubin reframes these challenges not as failures, but as necessary and maybe even helpful parts of the whole process.
You ever have that feeling, staring at a blank page, a blank canvas, and just feeling completely paralyzed by the infinite possibilities? It can be terrifying, but Rubin has a pretty counterintuitive solution.
He argues that constraints are actually catalysts. Things like a tight deadline, a small budget, or a specific format, they're your best friend. They force you to make decisions, they give you something to push against, and they turn those infinite possibilities into actual, tangible choices.
All right, so what about the other big one? The one we all dread. The creative block. That awful feeling that the well has just run dry and you've got nothing left to give.
Rubin's diagnosis here is really profound. He says a block is rarely a failure of talent, it's a failure of courage. It's all about fear. Fear that what you make won't be good enough. And the cure isn't to try harder, but to go back to a spirit of play, to detach from the outcome and just remember the joy of making things for the sake of making them.
And all of this leads us to the ultimate realization of the book, that creativity isn't something you do from 9 to 5. It's a way you live. It's a continuous process, not a final product.
And here's the big paradox. Stop trying to please some imaginary audience. Just make the work that you yourself need to see in the world. Because the more honest and authentic it is to your own vision, the more likely it is to connect deeply with other people. Authenticity is what really resonates.
So really, the crucial point is to just let go. Find your joy and your meaning in the act of creating itself, not in whatever praise or criticism might follow. The reward is the process. The reward is the engagement.
And we'll end on this final, really powerful question that sits right at the heart of Rubin's entire philosophy. What if the whole point of the creative act isn't the painting or the song or the book that you create? What if the real masterpiece is the more aware, more attentive, and more courageous person you become in the process of making it? Now that's a thought worth sitting with. Thanks for watching.